Chapter 9. A Quiet Happiness. Not every ending announces itself. Some arrive the way morning does, in a familiar place, without ceremony, without urgency, carried in on habits and small sounds that no longer feel temporary. This is the kind of happiness that doesn't ask to be noticed. It lives in rooms that have been claimed, in work shared without instruction, in lights left on because someone will be home soon. This is not a story about what was fixed. It is a story about what was cared for and allowed to remain. Morning came to Maple Street without ceremony, the way it always had. But the building above the diner woke differently now. The apartment over the diner held sound in a new way. Footsteps moved from room to room. A drawer opened and closed. A kettle was set on the stove upstairs before the first light reached the street. The floorboards still creaked, but they creaked with familiarity, not apology. This place no longer felt temporary. It felt claimed. Jack had been awake for a while. He stood at the small kitchen counter upstairs, rinsing a mug and setting it into the rack beside another. Then another. 3 mugs now, sometimes 4. He paused, noticing that, then turned off the tap and dried his hands on a dish towel Sarah had hung there weeks ago. It wasn't folded neatly. It didn't need to be. The kitchen had changed quietly. A crock held wooden spoons instead of letting them rattle in a drawer. A bowl of fruit sat on the counter and stayed filled. A runner softened the table, its colors muted enough to feel like it had always belonged. Jack noticed these things not all at once, but in pieces. A coffee mug, no longer leaving a ring on bare wood. A chair angled just enough toward the window to catch the morning light. He said nothing, but he washed his mug immediately after using it now, instead of leaving it by the sink. Down the short hallway, Jenny's room rested in its own certainty. Her door was closed, but not tight. A soft line of light slipping out beneath it. Inside, her bed sat beneath the window. Quilts layered in colors she had chosen herself. Her drawings covered the wall beside the bed. Careful ones, wild ones, unfinished ones, taped up without hierarchy. This room was hers. At the end of the hall, the smallest room had been cleared and repainted weeks earlier. Pale walls, a crib assembled carefully, a basket of blankets folded and refolded. Until Sarah was satisfied they were soft enough. A rocking chair angled into the warmest corner of lamplight. The baby would sleep here. The room waited without impatience. Sarah stood in the doorway, with one hand resting lightly on her stomach. Jack came up behind her and set his hand at her waist. "It's ready," he said. She nodded. Yes, Oscar did not live here. Behind the diner, set just far enough apart to feel like its own world. The cottage glowed softly. A single window was already lit. Inside, Oscar moved through his space with practiced familiarity. Hooks by the door held his jacket and messenger bag. Shelves lined with tools were labeled neatly. A narrow kitchen table sat beneath the window, sized exactly for his reach. Independence lived. Jack knocked once before opening the door, as he always did. Oscar looked up and smiled. "Good morning." "Morning," Jack said. "Coffee on." "I'll come by later," Oscar replied easily. "Not permission, information." Jack nodded. Oscar crossed between spaces with ease now. The cottage, the diner, the apartment, choosing where to be, when to be alone, when to join. Independence did not mean distance. It meant trust. Downstairs, the diner woke slowly. Jack turned on the lights one row at a time. Chrome caught and released the glow. The old refrigerator hummed, paused, then hummed again. The smell of coffee filled the space, warm and familiar. Oscar arrived from the cottage just after sunrise. Messenger bag strap straightened. Jacket hung carefully on its hook. He went directly to the long table Jack had cleared just for him. The table waited. So did the light. He unpacked his tools slowly, touching each one before setting it down. This was not hesitation. It was acknowledgement. Jenny came downstairs a few minutes later, hair still wild from sleep, one sock halfway on. She paused at the bottom step, looking around as if confirming nothing had changed overnight. It hadn't. She finished pulling on her sock and climbed onto the stool beside Oscar. "What is it today?" she asked. Oscar tilted the object toward her. An old clock this time, its face yellowed, its hands stiff. "It stopped," he said. Jenny nodded solemnly. "Okay," she said. "We can fix it." Jack watched them from the counter, coffee warming his hands, and felt something loosen in his chest that he hadn't realized he was still holding. This ordinary morning, this ease, was the miracle he trusted most. Later, when the morning rush thinned and the work eased, Oscar and Jenny took their bikes down the quiet road behind the diner. Leaves crunched beneath their tires. The air smelled of earth and distant wood smoke. They rode side by side, adjusting pace instinctively, neither one ever far ahead or behind. They were best friends, not because anyone had decided it, but because they had chosen it again and again. Sarah and Jack watched from the edge of the yard, shoulders touching. "They're growing up," Sarah said. Jack nodded. "Yeah." There was no sadness in it, only gratitude. The gathering came that evening, though no one called it a baby shower out loud. It was simply a coming together. People arrived in ones and twos, filling the garden the way dusk fills a sky. Gradually, without asking permission, chairs scraped softly over brick. Someone set a dish down and forgot where they'd meant to put it. The string lights flickered on overhead. Katie arrived carrying her baby. The child slept against her chest, warm and solid. One small hand curled into the fabric of her sweater. Katie adjusted her hold with the instinctive confidence of someone who had done this many times already. She was tired, yes, but she was steady. Nell hovered close, announcing the baby's virtues to anyone within range. Someone pulled a chair closer. Someone else reached out, then stopped themselves, smiling instead. Sarah sat beside Katie, careful not to wake the baby. They shared a look. Exhaustion, joy, understanding passed quietly between them. The man from the bank arrived not long after. He did not linger at the edge. He came straight in, greeting people easily. When Nell called his name from across the table, he turned immediately, laughing before the joke even finished landing. There were no hearing aids behind his ears now. No careful positioning. No strain. Oscar noticed first. Later, Margaret arrived quietly. Someone made room. A chair shifted. A hand reached for hers. She was folded into the evening without comment. When the baby stirred and settled again, when plates were half empty and the air had cooled, Sarah spoke softly. "She has a show," she said, "in New York." Recognition moved through the group like a shared breath. Margaret was restored. Truly, the gallery in New York did not shout. White walls, soft light, her paintings hung with care. Friends from long ago stood quietly. Family lingered. Lois stood beside Margaret and took her hand. "You kept it," Lois said softly. "All of it." Margaret breathed. Her name was on the wall. When we return to Maple Street, night has fully arrived. The apartment above the diner glows. Multiple windows lit now. Jenny sleeps in her own bed. The baby's room waits. Oscar's cottage shines with its own steady light. Jack leaves one light on near the window. Nothing is perfect. Nothing is lost. What was broken was cared for, and it holds. The light stays on. Lights on Maple Street. Thank you for spending this quiet time on Maple Street. Stories like this don't end because life is finished. They end because the moment we were meant to witness has been gently held. The lights will come on again tomorrow. The diner will open. Someone will make coffee before the sun is fully awake. Someone will knock before entering. Someone will be waiting. Wherever you are, may you carry a little of that steadiness with you. The kind that doesn't hurry. The kind that stays. Good night. And remember, the light stays on.